What's up everyone? Welcome to my channel. I'm Ryan Becker, and every week I drop a new video where I talk about absurd issues in religion, culture, and society. If you're new here, click that subscribe button, click the bell icon so you can be the first to know when I post a new video, and give this video a thumbs up to help me grow this channel. And make sure to stay until the end for a little treat to make your day a little bit brighter. Today's absurdity, Amy Cooper. Monday morning in Central Park, a white woman, Amy Cooper, called the police on Christian Cooper, no relation, a black man who was birdwatching and had asked her to put a leash on her dog that she had off-leash in a section of the park where taking a dog off-leash is against the rules. Amy refused, called the police, and said this.
And there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog.
Her voice gets more distressed as the call goes on, sounding more desperate and exasperated, while the man in question is just standing there.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
Monday night, she surrendered her dog to the rescue shelter she adopted the dog from a few years ago, and her place of work, Franklin Templeton, has put her on administrative leave and, as of Tuesday afternoon, fired her. Christian Cooper recounted the conversation that took place prior to the video. During that conversation, he warns her that in that section of the park, dogs need to be on a leash at all times. He then says, "Look, if you're going to do what you want, I'm going to do what I want, but you're not going to like it." Then calls the dog to him and starts pulling out treats from his pocket for the dog. Amy reacts to this, yelling not to touch her dog, and that's when Christian pulled out his phone and started recording. At worst, the most you could accuse Christian of is vague language. To some extent, it's not surprising that a woman alone in a park would feel threatened after a vague comment like that. I agree that it wasn't the smartest way to make his point. However vague his comment and its implication, though, it does not warrant attempting to weaponize the police against the man who had kept his distance, not walked toward her, and while recording, actually tells her not to come near him. But the conversation isn't the real problem. The problem is the fact that she called 911 on a man who had not committed any crime and revealed that she didn't feel threatened because of his behavior, but because of his race. There are people that think it is race baiting to talk about race in this, but quite frankly, she told him exactly what she would say to the police. There is an African-American man threatening my life. She made it about race before anyone else did. And what she said is not just problematic, it's dangerous. There is a very intentional threat being levied here. I am going to call the police, and when I tell them your skin color, you will suffer. Whether she is intentionally employing any knowledge of other police brutality stories or doing so subconsciously, it really doesn't matter. She knew that if she called the police as a white woman, saying a black man was threatening her, she would be protected by them. This was another way of saying, if you don't stop recording me, I'll call the police, and we both know what they do to people who look like you. If this doesn't sound that bad to you, take the case of Emmett Till, who was lynched at 14 years old in 1955 after he was accused of offending Carolyn Bryant, a 21-year-old, in her family's grocery store. Till was accused of flirting with or whistling at Bryant, and she testified that he made physical and verbal advances toward her. In 2008, she did an interview with historian Timothy Tyson for his book, The Blood of Emmett Till. This is the first known interview with Bryant, during which she conceded that Till had not come on to her sexually, a disclosure that directly contradicted her testimony 6 decades earlier when she told a jury that Till grabbed her by the waist and uttered obscenities. That part's not true, Bryant told Tyson, according to the book. Nothing that boy did could ever justify what happened to him. 7 days after that store incident, Emmett Till was lynched by Carolyn Bryant's husband, Roy Bryant, and Roy's half-brother, J.W. Milam. We know this because even though they were acquitted just a month later by an all-white jury, the two publicly admitted to the killing a year later. A white woman lied about what a black man did, and the black man was killed for it. The Emmett Till tragedy became a spark that would help ignite the civil rights movement across the country. It's one of the most famous events in civil rights history. Fast forward to today, whether she would admit it or not, Amy Cooper believed, at some base level, that her race, and potentially her gender, would ensure the cops would take her side. This is confirmed by her saying exactly what she would say to the police before she actually called the police.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
It wasn't just a description so the police would know who to look for. His race was reason enough for the police to act quickly. Amy Cooper has since told CNN that her, quote, entire life is being destroyed right now, which is ironic, seeing as she literally tried to destroy a black man's life simply because he was recording her and asking her to leash her dog. There is still this misconception that racism always comes dressed in a KKK outfit or with a Nazi symbol tattooed on someone's arm, as if racism isn't racism if it doesn't declare itself as such. While yes, racism certainly can come all dressed up and announcing its own presence, it can also be far more subtle and nuanced. It's not an overt act of hatred. It's an internal belief that results in actions taken that disadvantage a person of color or seek to gain an advantage over a person of color because of their race. Amy Cooper doesn't need to literally say that she hates people of color in order for her actions to be racist. She likely genuinely believes she doesn't hate black people, and therein lies the problem. Racism is not just hatred for people of color. That one-dimensional understanding just does not cut it. And you don't need to be a confessed racist in order to do racist things. Her actions were racist because she tried to use his race as a reason why the police should act in her favor. It's hilarious to me because many of the people saying that we can't assume racism because she didn't overtly admit to it are the same people who throw out wild accusations and craft conspiracy theories around politicians or celebrity figures. They have no problem assuming that Obama was a secret Muslim sent to destroy America and enact Sharia law, even though there's no evidence for a claim like that. Yet say it is entirely unfair to declare racist actions as such when there is plenty of evidence to support the declaration. These are the moments that we need to speak up about and do our best to prevent from happening. It is not hard to understand how this could have escalated into something so much worse. Countless lives can be saved if we can discover and address the unconscious biases we each have toward other people. Here are some ways that you can do just that. Every time you make an assumption about someone, ask yourself why you've made it. Several years ago in my apartment complex I was living in, I saw a black man cleaning his porch. As I drove by, my thought was, that guy did well for himself. As soon as I thought that, I asked myself why. Why did I think it at all? I've never thought that about anyone else I had seen in that complex, and that complex itself wasn't even some fancy complex. It was a normal one. So what was the reason? After I took some time to process it, I had grown up with an understanding that poor people and criminals lived across the train tracks and in the bad part of town. Anytime my church or school did community service in areas like that, it seemed like it was a majority of people of color. I drew broad conclusions based on those experiences growing up, and I realized that now I had used those experiences to make an assumption about this man who I had only seen for a brief moment, based on a bias I didn't even realize I had before then. We need to be aware of our unconscious biases. We need to ask others where those are in our lives, where they've seen us be insensitive toward people of color or other people groups in general. We need to catch ourselves in the moments where we're assuming things about people that may not actually be true. The second thing we can do is we can decide that racism is a non-negotiable in our relationships of all types. A big problem we have is that we don't want to talk to loved ones about their own biases because we don't want to risk the relationship for that. We decided that we were okay with a little racism if it meant keeping the relationship and keeping the peace. But each of us has boundaries that if someone violated, we wouldn't be friends with them anymore. We say that these racist ideologies haven't directly hurt anyone, so it's not a big deal. But what cases like Emmett Till and now Christian Cooper have shown us is that it is very possible for those ideologies to directly lead to harm or death for people of color. We're lucky in the case of Christian Cooper, as both left the scene before police arrived and no police report was ever officially filed, and Christian Cooper never had a run-in with police as a result. The only way to stop these ideologies is for us to chip away at them over time through small, intentional conversations. Very few change their mind after one encounter, but if we don't let them get away with it enough times, they may start to see the pattern in their own behaviors and thoughts and realize that they need to change. The last thing I would encourage you to do in this video is to educate yourself. The resources are out there. There are countless books, articles, and videos that can be watched to learn about racism and its different forms and applications. While we should ask the people of color who are close to us to help us understand their situations, We have a personal responsibility to learn how our beliefs and our behaviors impact others around us. It is not a person of color's responsibility to teach you that their life is of equal value. No one should have to spend their entire life justifying why other groups shouldn't hate them or explaining how that hatred is communicated. We have a responsibility to learn and to educate ourselves. So if you want a good place to start, there are links to books in the description below. I'd love to hear from you. What has your experience with racism been just within the last year? Leave a comment down below. All of us have a part to play in putting a stop to racism. So thanks for watching, and make sure to like this video and click that subscribe button so you can see the latest videos I put out each week. And as always, enjoy some B-roll of my dog, Sugar.